We got to warm him
Wow.
up a little bit.
Wow. All
We
right.
call it preheating the oven. Just busting your balls, man. Hey, everybody. Chad, good to see you. This is an interesting dynamic. This is like alpha V1 of the agency hot seat. So I don't exactly know how we're gonna do this. Maybe I'll like force the person that comes on the roast to like say hello to everybody. That'd be cool. What's going on, Chad?
How many do I know here? I know Harry. What's up, Harry?
Yeah, that's what
A
I'm
couple
talking
of
about.
names look, yeah. Um, a couple of names look familiar. I definitely know Andrew. Andrew just subscribed to my channel. You're number 20, Andrew. So, so my subscriber base increased by 5% in one day. Right.
Andrew's a real one. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks,
All
Andrew.
right. We are coming up on 3 minutes. Let's dive into this, Bruce. Let's just
Yep,
get
let's do
started,
it.
man. Let me pull up the agency hot seat thread just so we're all kind of working off the same doc.
Mm.
And yeah, first of all, thanks everybody for joining. This is the first iteration of the agency hot seat. The whole idea is, like I want all the events in Make Money with Make and really just any program to be about like practical strategies for starting, scaling, and then like maintaining and whatever, like an actual business. Like basically, I want everything that we talk about to be money related because I think that I've joined a bunch of communities now, and I think that they're like we don't have the highest volume of events here, but in terms of the volume of events about making money, like that's yeah, there's no other community that talks more about making money, I would say, in this context than ours.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the whole main point. It's about like how do we actually take these tools and make money with it. So I figured the agency hot seat was going to be a perfect example of that, where we take somebody that is making money, somebody that's succeeded in AI and automation to some extent, and that extent will vary depending on the people that we talk to. And then just like practically and collaboratively brainstorm ways to make their business better. And, there'll be roasts when it's appropriate, but I imagine the vast majority of the call is just going to be us listening to what an actual AI automation business looks like. Actually peeling back the curtain and seeing, what sort of problems are we all going through? What sort of solutions can we collectively come up with to solve those problems? And yeah, I'm just excited to see how this sort of format goes. So that was a long-winded way to introduce the lovely Bruce Martin. Welcome aboard, Bruce. Great having you.
Thank you, Nick. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you as well. We have this Google Doc with a
Yeah.
couple of questions that we're both going to be going through
Yep.
collaboratively, and I'm just going to ask Bruce some questions to start. And then I'm just going to let you take the reins for the most part. Like the first 20, 30 minutes, I'm just going to be asking him questions about his business, kind of where he started, where he wants to go, and that sort of stuff. And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about some recommendations that I think that if he implements, he'll be able to make or save more of his money. And then finally, at the very end, we'll also like open it up for everybody here so that they can ask Bruce questions and kind of wrap with him on it and stuff like that. Are we all in agreement? Does that sound good? I guess I was meaning to ask Bruce. Bruce, does that sound good to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Ariel Cohen says roast away, and I am 100% in agreement. Right.
All right, let's do it, man.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So, when did you first start the AI and automation business, Bruce?
The AI automation business started specifically around 1 month after I joined Make Money with Make, right? And so I think it's important to sort of preface this with the fact that I did have a lead gen agency. So, but it was it was more marketing agency type stuff than it was AI implementations and whatever it is that we do. So technically about, gosh, it's April now, about 10 months, 9, 10 months.
Cool. So you've been
Yeah.
operating it for 9, 10 months now. Just so we're all clear,
Yeah.
is there like a brand name? Is it just Bruce Martin, sort of like a solo agency at this point, or is this something I can Google really quickly?
Yeah. So the website, pretty simple website, growthstrategy.gg.
Ooh, you got a GG
And
domain. Oh wow, that's next level. We got a
yeah,
gamer in the house.
that's funny enough, that's actually for Guernsey, the financial, one of those like financial hubs.
Really?
Um, yeah, yeah.
Very
It's I
cool.
think it's just off the British Isles or somewhere in Britain.
Cool.
Um, but yeah,
Cool. So you've been operating growthstrategy.gg essentially for the better part of the last 10 months or so. Is that right?
Yeah, so growthstrategy.gg, growth strategy has been running for quite a while. The automation side of the business has been active for the last 10 months or so. And I think probably the big differentiator is just the change in offering.
Mm,
Um, before before it was just, we'll get your clients, lead gen, all of this stuff. Now it was building systems so that you can do this yourself. And then they realized that, hey, even with the systems, we can't do it ourselves. Um, and so that becomes nice for retainers. But
right.
I think fundamentally it was sort of a shift in thinking about how we're offering things,
Mm,
and then shifting, you know, officially from lead gen to an automation agency.
yeah. I think we got roast number one. People are saying you are so damn quiet that nobody can hear you.
All right. That's a good start.
I'm
That's
just
a good
screwing with
start.
you, man.
Uh,
That's the preheating the oven. Okay, well, outline your journey for me then. Like when you started with this AI automations and offering side of growthstrategy.dg, how did you start? Like, what were your first couple of steps? Obviously, you joined Make Money with Make, which I'm grateful for, but maybe a little bit
yeah.
before then, leading up to that decision where you're like, hey, AI automation is the business model for me.
Right. Can I take you like way back, like way, way, way back? Right. So yeah, I actually came out of the automotive industry.
Hmm.
Right. Actually, I think I might have spoken about this in the fireside chat a little bit. But I I had an what do you call the panel shop? An auto body shop for like 7 or 8 years. It was like 2,500 square meters, 23 employees. It was quite big, and I spent so much of my time in the early 2010s building people's websites as opposed to fixing the cars. Um, that I was like, I gotta leave this. I gotta go into web development or marketing or something. And I gave it all up, sold it, paid off all the debt, and then went um, into marketing.
Hmm.
Started at a what do you call this? A marketing automation software called SharpSpring, and
Hmm.
found myself in Silicon Valley 2 years later. A little boy from Cape Town, and I worked there for about a year and a half. Came back and started the agency Growth Strategy, and that's where the Growth Strategy comes from. And sort of
Gotcha.
messed around with everything from web dev to Facebook ads, and eventually settled on cybersecurity and doing lead gen for cybersecurity. So I've been doing that for the last, I guess, 4 or 5 years. Um, and the big shift to me was understanding that a lot of the lead gen stuff that I'm doing, um, I can do it a lot more efficiently if I implement these AI automations. And so there was sort of a natural progression to that. And the offering just changed from instead of me getting you X amount of leads, when I just build you a system so you can get these leads for yourself.
Mm,
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty natural evolution. Although I am kind of curious why you jumped into cybersecurity, like right off the bat. Did you have any pre-existing cybersecurity experience, or were you just like, you know what, I think there's ROI in this niche, I'm going to tackle it?
It was because of Semantic. Um, I
Okay.
I worked at Semantic. I had a bit of experience there, and cybersecurity is really really tough to do lead gen in. It's
Mm,
extremely difficult. Um, a lot of people start out, and they just like 3 or 4 months in, they're like, no, I can't do this. Um, and it's just because the persona is so, what's a politically correct word? Fickle. Let's go with fickle, right?
this is an after hours agency hot seat. Say whatever the hell you
There
want.
we go. There we go.
All right, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Although I do find in practice, like basically every agency has some sort of new, every vertical has that like that belief amongst itself. Like uh, not to shit on the fickleness of cybersecurity consultants or firms or whatever, but like, like recruitment agencies. I was talking with a bunch of like recruitment agencies back in the day because I was targeting primarily recruitment agencies. And you would not believe how many people are like, man, recruitment agencies are damn fickle, all this industry is so insular
Mm,
and stuff like that. So I find that pretty interesting. I'm sure there's there's merit to what you're saying, although I will also say that I think it's just human nature to always think that the niche
yeah,
that you target is full of a bunch of hard heads. Okay, this is great.
you're probably right.
This is great. I feel like I've gotten some insight into the motivations behind the lovely Mr. Martin, gotten some insight
Mm,
into kind of like your first few steps and sort of like the background here that has enabled you to, take the swings you've been taking. Let's
mm.
now just get down to brass tacks. Let's talk some numbers because I think that, that's like we're all about money at the end of the day. If we could look into your revenue over the course of the last 90 days, which I suppose would be in this combined cybersecurity lead gen slash AI automation thing, what are we looking at?
So, should I give the backstory about the cybersecurity thing?
Oh, the company that gave you the yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right. All right. So, just to get everyone up to date. So, a lot of the automations that I put in place, for one of my clients last year, booked them about 36 meetings with major banks in South Africa and Africa. And because of these deals that they've managed to close, they asked me specifically to not be that agency that I am to them, for anyone else. And so they made me sign a non-disclosure agreement, a non-solicitation agreement, in exchange for 20% of their company. Right. So, I got actually got 20% equity in the cybersecurity company. Um, and so that has taken my attention off solely AI automations, a little bit, although still growing it. And so if we're looking at combined revenue, we're around $15,000 in the last 90 days for AI. For the AI automation agency, and about, I need to convert 2.5 million rand into dollars. I don't know how much that is. I think
We can do the
it's
math.
about
Was it 2.5 divided by 18?
yeah,
It's going to be 140,000 for
yeah,
that enclosed. And you said you're making what, like 20% of that?
20% of that. Yeah,
So I guess revenue wise, it's another $27,000 on the new offer, which is
yeah,
great. Very cool. Very cool.
yeah,
All right. So if I'm understanding correctly, you got 27K in this equity stake deal, which came about as a result of your great lead gen efforts. And then in terms of like actual AI automation offerings, you've closed about $15,000 over the course of the last 90 days or so.
yeah,
So 15,000 plus 27. I'm just doing my math out loud because that's how bad I am at it. Is 42. And then if we divide
yeah.
that by 90 days is 3 months. So if we divide that by three,
Mm-hmm.
it's about 14 grand or so in top line. Is that fair? A month,
Yeah, that's fair.
approximately over the
Yeah.
over the last. Okay, cool. Solid place to be in, my man. I like it. Cool, cool, cool. Roughly speaking, where did the so I mean I know where the $27,000 came from because it's from the lead
Mm-hmm.
gen efforts with the new business. But where did the
Right.
$15,000 come from? So if you could just like enumerate the lead gen methods that you're using, I take it was probably mostly cold email, right?
No, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, my Upwork started picking up quite a bit.
Okay,
Um, Upwork started picking up, so about 20% of that came from Upwork. Um, and the big shocker for me was other marketing agencies and lead gen agencies, actually asking me proactively for help. Um, and so all of them were inbound, which is really great because I never expected that as a revenue stream at all.
interesting. When you say inbound, are
Yeah,
they finding you through like your social media or something, or where they like where do you think
L-
the leads are being generated?
only LinkedIn,
Only LinkedIn, eh? Wow. You posting a lot
only
on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. I post at least once a week, but I do comment a lot, and the comments seem to help.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, and all the all the rest are outbound LinkedIn.
Okay.
The rest is 50%. The other 50% is outbound LinkedIn. It's just me using Triggerfy, to find those social signals and then telling them how I found them. And then they're like, yeah, can you do that for me too? And they, yeah,
Happy to.
that's literally my pitch.
Wow.
Um, saying like, I saw you, I use Trigify to find one of 3 or 4 signals. So it's really strong intent. And
Mhm.
I say, well, I know that on LinkedIn tools. This is how I found you. And they're like, wow, how do I do that? Just jump on a call. And they're like, can you do this for me? Yeah, this is what it costs. And that's it.
Wow, man. Well, that's really cool. I don't think I've
Yeah.
heard of this particular kind of flow before. Very, very cool. I had no idea, Bruce. I thought see, that's why I'm really glad we could do these hot seats because we could kind of dive into some, I don't want to say less traditional, but obviously I talk about like the big three here a lot of the time, right? Like cold email, Upwork, and then communities. Like that's like the main thing. But it sounds like you're having a lot
Yeah.
of success with lead gen methods that aren't necessarily included under that umbrella. If I got my math right, thanks for spelling that out. Of the 15K then, so about maybe 3 grand or so was from Upwork, about 6K was from LinkedIn inbound, and then 6K from LinkedIn outbound. Is that right? I mean, you gave me some rough
About,
percentages. You said 20%
yeah,
from Upwork,
let's
then the
say
other 50%.
yeah, about 8K from LinkedIn.
Okay,
Um, sorry, about 7.5K from LinkedIn and
cool.
um, what is 20%? 3K from Upwork, and the others was also inbound from, but LinkedIn, but inbound.
Gotcha. Okay, okay, gotcha, gotcha. So
Mm,
actually, the majority was from the outbound LinkedIn then, with the Trigify
correct,
offer thing. Cool. Very cool. Very cool. And then
correct.
my
Well,
math ain't so good. Was that like 4,500? But something like that. Okay. Yeah, that's sweet, man. Harry, I think it's literally Trigify. I think he's using the platform. Oh, sorry.
um, no,
No.
I'm not. I'm using the strategy
Yeah.
that Trigify uses, but I'm literally just taking influencers, scraping all of the engages, whoever's engaging with them, commenting, cross-referencing that with my ICP, and then sending them outbound messages. So you don't
Gotcha.
need Trigify for this. A couple of API actors, and you're off to the races.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's sweet, man. I mean, that sounds reasonably scalable. Just from I'm just like kind of bird's eye perspective. From a bird's eye perspective, that sounds reasonably scalable. The fact that you've made, 2.5 times more than you have from Upwork, even though your Upwork is like taking off, quote unquote, makes that seem like a pretty logical place to put your effort. I wonder, are you running into any like campaign limits there? Like daily, daily, how many can you send? How many pieces of outbound can you send per day, realistically? These are connection requests, yeah? 15, 20?
Yeah, yeah. On LinkedIn, we're limited to 200 a week.
200 now. Okay.
Sometimes they push that up to 250. We never know what the exact limit is.
Yeah.
And but there's a weird bit of LinkedIn trivia that every year they push your reset date 1 day back. So it'll reset Sundays this year, and next year it'll reset on Mondays. Who knows why?
Interesting. Trying to get people that are game in the system or something. I don't know. They,
Maybe.
they, they have a
Yeah.
different calendar. It's not the Gregorian calendar, it's the Gates calendar. Who knows? Um, all right. Would you say you're fully utilizing all of the available outbound right now? Like, if you have 200 a week, are you using all 200 every single week?
Um, about 90%. About
All right.
90%.
You leave
Um,
yourself some
I'm
buffer.
I'm trying to not use all of it because a lot of times I'll come across a really good contact that I don't have, that's not in my campaign,
Hmm.
or that I want to send this very specific message to, and I won't have any more connection requests. I'll have to wait till next week or pause the campaign. And so I try and leave a little bit of a buffer.
That's really interesting. It's like an investing strategy, honestly, where you have the majority of your funds held in some sort of like easily liquidable stock, but then you also have cash on the side to make immediate purchases. I like that. That's very smart.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really smart,
Exactly.
really smart. Cool, man. After this, like, how does the sales flow go usually? So you just generated all these leads. Where are you putting them? You jumping on a sales call, I take it. If so, what's that look like? Run me through like how you get one of these people, specifically the Trigify outbound stuff. That's what I'm most interested in. But maybe
Right.
touch on the inbound stuff as well. And then how do you convert them into a paying client?
Yeah. So the LinkedIn stuff has become a little bit easier because they're warm. I don't want to say warm, but they're actually interested in the specific subject, and we're not reaching them cold because
Mm,
they've engaged with a couple of posts, and so the conversation's a little bit easier, especially when you're just coming out with a strategy in the DMs. Um, the conversation would usually go on my messaging is just this: hey, I nerd out on LinkedIn tools quite often. Let me know if you want to trade notes. Right.
Hmm.
That's my
Interesting.
that's my that's my connection request.
Right.
Um, and they accept, and well, I'm like, hey, this is how I found you. Um, I use these influencers, see how many social signals or how many people like or comment, and I do some enrichment, and I send you a message, right? And they're like, wow, that's amazing, and I send them a video, so it'll be like a loom of exactly the process. I'll take them through my screen, so it's kind of like Upwork,
Okay.
right? Like if you just did that video, so but I'll
Hmm.
show them exactly how I found them. So it's just a video version of what I said in the text.
Man, that's some alpha right there. It's like Upworkifying LinkedIn. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
sweet.
they're like, yeah, let's jump on a call. Um, and there's very, very little AI in the messaging, but there's lots of AI in the qualification.
Hmm.
Right. So I know that I'm always reaching out to the people that I'm supposed to be reaching out to.
True. So even if, your top of funnel is not as big, you know that these people are all pre-qualified because of those high intent
Yeah.
signals. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Man, I was expecting to roast you a lot more, but I'm not seeing anything to roast yet. I'm sure we'll get to that later. I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'd probably do that.
One of the things that I have put on pause a little bit is the cold outbound because I do, the cold outbound email, I should say.
Hmm.
It was a really good channel when I did there was a time where I did EOR, and that's in my fireside chat.
Mhm.
And EOR, everyone who doesn't know, it's an employer of record, basically people who want to um, give you a legal statutory presence in another country where employees are less expensive. Um, and I found that there wasn't a big TAM. And so my 8,000 emails a day infrastructure was a little bit overkill for that. And for cybersecurity, because of the trust factor of the persona, um, the what do you call this? The response rate were very, very low. The moment I would switch that industry,
Mm.
it would go up dramatically. So
Interesting.
the audience is really, really fickle. And I know usually we spoke about how we're subjectively fickle, but yeah, I've come to learn a couple of things about them, how they only play with each other, right? And if you don't wear the same suit, yeah, you're not part of our group, right?
Makes perfect sense. I'm right
Mm-hmm.
there with you. I think that yeah, yeah. Like anytime I'm just thinking about outreach, the best performance I've ever had on outreach is always when I frame myself as one of them, like kind of in the in group. So anytime I can have some sort of plausible deniability in the outreach that let's say you're reaching out to cybersecurity consultants or companies, that I am a cybersecurity consultant or company, or I'm in cybersecurity, or I'm in some sort of cybersecurity adjacent field, obviously results are a lot higher, right? So I'm not surprised that you felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, I've been taking notes on some things that I think that we could probably try, and I'll just throw them all at you afterwards. But this has been really, really educational. I see Harry has a question, but let's just answer that one at the end so that I can get through these recommendations. All right, like
All
last
right,
15
thank
minutes
you.
or so.
Mm-hmm.
You got any big monthly expenses that maybe I wouldn't immediately know about? Like, do you have like crazy software expenses? Do you have like some, I don't know, are you bleeding money with that company you made 27 grand with in the last 90 days? Is there something here that like you might consider peculiar or worth noting expense wise? Or are your margins pretty solid? When I say pretty solid, I mean like, I don't know, 60% up.
Yeah, it's nothing crazy. All standard sort of software expenses. Um, in the cybersecurity side of things, in the
Mhm.
cybersecurity company, I think one of the big issues I'm facing now is just the CEO, the managing director, the guy who owns the other 80% of the company, is hospitalized,
Oh,
right?
geez.
Yeah, so he was supposed to go in for a routine op like 2 months ago. Supposed to be 2 days. It's been 2 months. Um, and so yeah, so we had a couple of deals that actually fell through because um, nobody had access to the bank accounts. And so there was a problem with the email. So none of us have been able to log in for the last 6 weeks. Right.
6 weeks?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Um, yeah. We actually won a tender with the CCMA, which is like it's like a labor dispute government agency. And they had to withdraw it because no one's answering their emails.
Oh
Um,
man. I bet you that would have been a chunky deal too, huh?
it was about $300,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's definitely a big issue. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A new daily actionable. Get that guy his vitamins. No, just kidding. I don't know what the situation is that's resulting in his hospitalization, so I won't be crass, but that's a big problem for sure. I mean, the whole like, no responding to emails for 6 weeks, that's gigantic. It's unfortunate that
Mhm.
all of that control rests with him, that he has full access to the bank accounts and stuff like that. I understand the necessity for it, if he's 80% of the owner of the business, but that's really unfortunate. Not a good spot for you to be in at all. Are you taking the sales calls, or are you managing aside from that? I mean, $27,000 in 3 months is still 9 grand a month, right? It's not bad.
Yeah. So that 27 was all before he got
Wow. So you
hospitalized.
would have made more even. Probably would have like averaged 15K, 20K months. And I imagine just not having
Uh,
him around and you having to hustle, kind of carry the load yourself probably disincentivizes or discourages you from doing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been challenging because there's a lot of administrative burden you sort of have to bear. And there's very, very little reward for that, monetary reward.
Hmm.
A lot of it is sort of just trying to save face. Um, and some of the deals I just had to give away
Hmm.
to other cybersecurity companies, which they were very happy about, right?
Well, yeah. You get a
And I
referral
sort
for
of
those at least?
yeah. So I'll get a referral commission, but it's about 90% there. It's not guaranteed because you're changing the entire team and persona that they have to deal with the end client that is.
For sure.
Um, yeah.
Okay. All right, man. Well, listen, I really appreciate you answering those revenue questions and kind of giving me some insight into like the way that you're currently managing your business. That definitely sounds like one of the big bottlenecks, which I'll talk about next. Okay, so actually, like you've already answered a bunch of my other ones. I was going to ask you if you had a niche or multiple. If so, what are they and why? You more or less answered that. Um, you told me about how the funnel goes. Uh, let's cover. I imagine you have pretty good automation skills, so I don't necessarily need to dive deep into that. You're selling a very specific kind of packaged offer. You're not just like a general purpose custom builder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
figured.
So I think you probably for context, you need one more.
Hmm.
Because cybersecurity is so I'm going to maintain that they're fickle. Um, One of the strategies that actually work on cold email is the podcast strategy, right?
Mm,
So so when my cybersecurity clients, are looking for clients, the best way to do that is for them to invite their prospects to a podcast. And so the cold email strategy is centered entirely around that podcast. Well, not entirely, but most of it is. And you get a lot of meetings as people are more open to building relationships in that way, getting a bit of exposure than they are to just responding positively to random cold emails, even if it is personalized. Um,
100%.
and so, yeah.
I ran a camp. Sorry for cutting you up, Bruce. I ran a campaign very similar to what you're describing, and then I had one of the people that I'm coaching run a very similar campaign. I think he got like 14% reply rates, and 75% of those were positive. They basically immediately wanted a book.
Wow,
So I mean, that's like 10% positive reply rate. You send out 100 emails, you get 10 freaking booked meetings. It was crazy. You had to slow it
it's
down,
insane.
cancel it basically like immediately after. Like it was like one day ascending, and it's like, okay, looks like I have a month of podcasts. But the big issue for him, and an issue that I ran into as well, was how do you convert these podcast appearances into like actual work with them, right? And I see Andrew's asking about this. The whole idea is basically what you do is you host a podcast of some kind, and then you reach out to people and say, "Hey, I'd really love to have you on the podcast." The podcast is both a way for you to build rapport and character and authority with the person that you're chatting with, because you're giving them something of value, which is presumably a media appearance. But it's also a way for you to like get them in your network. Because once somebody's spoken with you for an hour or whatever, I mean, it's kind of like an hour long sales call. And so then the idea is, throughout the sales call or whatever or sorry, throughout the podcast, you determine some of the problems they're facing, and maybe you drill down into a couple of them, and then you pitch them either on it or at the end. But anyway, the guy that I was working with, one of the people that I'm coaching, was just running into an issue in converting the intent from this sort of like networking idea where it's like, oh, nice to have you in my network, to like, hey, here's like a defined thing that I'm going to sell to you, that we're going to help you with. How did you find that?
Right. So that's a good question. Initially, it was a little bit difficult, um, but once you're able to identify a sort of a specific intent trigger. In my case, it was specifically using this one for SOC 2 and ISO 27K1. Now, all that means is that a lot of these software companies, in order for them to do business with corporates and to do business internationally, they need to have cybersecurity certifications,
Hmm.
SOC 2 and ISO 27K1. And if you can't do that, you sort of get stuck, left behind. And so we only targeted startups who have funding, but who don't have SOC 2 or ISO 27K1. And so it's like, hey, come into my podcast at the end of the podcast. I'm like, hey, I noticed you don't have this. Could we send someone around just to give you a quote and tell you how this works? Um, it could open up some doors for new business, and transitioning was easy once you do that. And you can sort of have the podcast without hidden agendas and
Yes.
just do it for them.
Yes.
So that's very, very helpful once you've qualified them in that way.
Yeah, for sure. That's fantastic. And at this point, you built a relationship with them. You've added something. You've given something to them, which is obviously that podcast appearance. So there's probably some feelings of reciprocity. That's great. And it's so funny because you know the entire time that they don't have their SOC 2 certification or whatever. By the
Exactly.
way, we just noticed. No way. This is crazy. Totally out of left field, but I love that.
and
I love
and
that. I love that.
chances are they're actively looking for a SOC 2 implementer at that time,
Yes,
because many funding rounds at that point are funding is also contingent on them getting a SOC 2 certification.
that's
Um,
fantastic. I think strategically, you've nailed it. I'm curious why you guys aren't doing more, to be honest. But let me run you through two final questions before I get into ways that I think you could be doing more. Okay. The first is how you're spending your time, because you have this amazing strategy. I'm not going to lie. This sounds like one of those strategies that some I don't know, 100 millionaire talks about in a podcast at some point. So how did you make your first 100? Well, we had a very interesting strategy. We sold SOC 2 certification or whatever. Um, but despite the fact you check that strategy box, it's like the big bottleneck is almost always you in some way. So how are you currently spending your time, Bruce? Like this is a full-time thing for you, I take it.
yeah.
Okay, run me through it.
Right. So the last 6 weeks to 2 months, it's a lot of admin with the two companies.
Okay.
So putting a lot of fires, not being able to really focus and hone in on specific things. As I mentioned, I used to have quite a large team, a team of cold callers, and then I found out that I really don't like people. No offense, everyone. Um,
He hates all of you specifically.
no, I like all of you. It's as long as you stay 6,000 miles away. Um, um, and yeah, I just didn't enjoy managing a team that much. Um, and at the time, there was AI cold calling, or AI calling was coming up, and I'm like, you know what, I could probably replicate these results with automation and with AI.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, went back into solopreneurship. And it does get all of the administrative type things to sort of build up. And I think you probably hit the nail on the head there with how I'm spending my time. A lot of it is administrative with well, at least in the last 2 months, with the managing director being hospitalized right now.
Right. When you say administrative, you're referring to, I don't know, like internal emails? You're referring to invoices, receipts, HR? Like, if we could break that down a little bit more.
I'm the only other shareholder. So literally everyone that he was dealing with is looking at me for specific things.
Okay.
And so there'll be literally like days of spending 3 or 4 hours a day trying to find an email trail in an email account that we can't access.
Yeah, that kills me. That kills me. That's not a good use of your time whatsoever.
Yeah,
Have you
it's
tried
not.
solving that specific problem before? I mean, it has been 2 months. Is there some other, I
Um,
don't know. I mean, like what sort of approaches have you taken to solving just the admin bottleneck problem? I take it he's been hospitalized for 2 months. You could probably still chat with him. Is he still like kind of capable of?
no,
Oh,
no, he's in a coma.
oh, Jesus. Well,
Yeah,
well then. Okay, well, I take that back. This is a learning moment for me, not to assume that people aren't in comas. God damn, that's terrible. What the
that's
hell are you gonna do about that, man?
it's really horrible. I've
Jesus. How the hell are you gonna? All right, well, fair enough. So I understand now why the administrative burden's on you. Yeah, you are one-fifth owner of
yeah.
this company. Is there, just while we're at it, I'm not going to beat a dead horse about this coma thing. There's very little you could probably do about it. Is there like a provision in place for how long he'll be in a coma? I guess just throwing something at the wall here. Is there some sort of assuming he, and I don't mean to say this, I'm sure you have a relationship with him, but if he passed tomorrow, what would happen to the company, I suppose?
Um, yeah, I've spoken to the the lawyer slash mediator about
Hmm.
what would happen, especially in terms of retaining clients. And he was like, well, depends on the legal structure that his business is structured in, or how he holds his shares. But
Okay.
most likely, if he doesn't hold it in some sort of juristic entity, then everything would basically be placed on hold. He wouldn't be able to operate without the majority shareholder. So that's our worst case scenario.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Well, obviously very little you can do about that. I'm sure that there's some things we could do on a meta level just to organize the information a little bit better. Like if you have access to some sort of email server, I don't know, some sort of accounts or whatnot. Um, One thing that I did just off the top of my head when so I was in a very similar situation to you, Bruce, which is so very interesting. Not the coma part, but the part where I was doing really well for a company, delivering outsized results. Then they actually invited me to own part of the company. Whereas you got 20%, I got 25%. And that was my little Prague arc where I flew to Prague.
Um,
Roger actually was just sending me a message about this the other day. And I basically performed this business turnaround. You know, one of the big issues with the company is uh, companies that are in dire needs of turnaround typically have was they were just extraordinarily disorganized and they had like no admin and everything was an absolute clusterfuck. So I inherited like 10 people's email inboxes, and luckily they're on
uh,
Google Workspace, where there is some provision where the administrator of the domain, if you have an admin account or something with certain permissions, you can download all of the organization's emails across every account and every workspace. It's quite invasive, but you kind of had to do it because all these people were gone. So we downloaded them all, and then we ran them all through AI to basically find the threads that you're talking about. We found a bunch of threads related to specifically one of the big issues of the company was they had a lot of accounts receivable, and we just didn't know
mhm.
who to email or contact for the accounts receivable. So we ran something like 50,000 emails, and we're talking dense emails here, through AI and extracted a bunch of the accounts receivable information that enabled us to follow up with them
Wow.
later. I'm wondering if there's something, I mean, like, I know that really, really far out idea here, but like if tracking down email threads for 3 or 4 hours a day is like where you're spending your time right now, that's not very effective at all. I wonder if there's any sort of out of the box
Mm.
solutions we might be able to look at.
Um, it's definitely worth looking at. To be honest, I would I'm I'm rather leaning towards just putting a little bit more energy back into the automation side of things,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
it because it just seems like you know I don't know if I can actually run a cybersecurity company on my own right now, or if I want to. Um, but I would like to spend less time um, doing dumb administrative stuff, like looking for emails.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if there's a way, for someone who's not an admin to actually get access to all of those emails, um, I'm all for that.
Okay, I'm just gonna make a note
Yeah,
right here, and I'll send you a DM afterwards with what I did. Maybe we could chat a little bit about it.
thank you, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll cover like what email server they're on and stuff like that, like what host and so on. Okay, cool, man. Well, thank you very much for answering all these questions. The reason why, I just basically grilled you for the better part of the last 35 minutes or so is because I think it's important for people, especially people that haven't closed deals, to see just like to be frank, this is the sort of sales conversation I would have with a prospect. I would literally just sit down and I would ask them everything about their business, and I would have them I don't know, yap about their pain points and the various things that they're going through. I'd make some minor suggestions along the way, but essentially I would take all this information, and I'm sure you do this as well in your own sales calls, and I would synthesize that into a solution, right? And I would try and match the solution as closely as possible with what I think the customer is facing. So this is a good example of like consultative selling, essentially, which to be fair is just mostly listening. And I think it's just important for anybody here that maybe is at the beginning of their sales journey or whatnot to realize that like a lot of the time sales doesn't really look like sales, right? Bruce was talking about a sales mechanism whereby it's a podcast, for instance. What do people do on podcasts? They talk a lot about the stuff that they're going through and the problems and their journeys and their struggles. This is a pretty similar example. So now that we're done with that, we can check all the questions about Bruce's business right off. What I want to do next is I want to brainstorm a little bit with you, Bruce, about things that are currently preventing you from moving forward. We'll do specifically the AI and automation business because we just talked about how your business partner's in a coma and there's not much we can do about that. If anybody has the power of God, please make your case right now in the chat. Maybe we'll be able to help that part out as well. But what I really want to do is I want to nail down some most important things. Have you heard of this idea, the most important thing idea?
I know.
Essentially, it's just, I mean, kind of self-explanatory, but
Yeah.
they're the most important things, the things that you should essentially be spending your time on exclusively. Okay. Obviously, you're going to have to do some stuff you don't want to do. Obviously, you're going to have to do some admin that probably doesn't drive an immediate ROI. But most important things are with every like other waking moment of your time. Like these are the three things that you focus on to the exclusion of all else. So I'll give you an example from my own life. The three things that I focus on because I've determined that they deliver me the highest return on investment are content for YouTube, because that just delivers me a ridiculous ROI right now, community management, because this also delivers me a ridiculous ROI, and then client fulfillment. So these are my three most important things. And if I'm doing something that's not in the three most important thing category, I actually just either I don't do it at all, or I look for ways to either automate it or outsource it. Make sense?
Right.
So, given everything that we've learned about your business so far, given the fact that you made $7,500 with honestly a pretty proprietary sounding LinkedIn approach, you're getting 4,500 in the last 90 days from inbound, and then you got 3,000 bucks a month from, sorry, 3,000 bucks from Upwork. Okay, just from a bird's eye perspective here. Let me actually, do you mind if I share my screen here? I don't know how this
Go
is
for
going
it.
to work on this call, to be honest, but we'll see. Hopefully you guys could see this. Just give me maybe a little thumbs up if you can. Y'all good?
Yep.
Okay. So, given this, there are a couple things that I think that realistically you should probably be experimenting. And I just made like notes of a few of them. Okay. I'm not going to win a freaking award for, uh, I kind of have doctor scrawl, so please bear with me here. This isn't a design competition. But very first thing that stuck out to me right at the bat is you have a system which is generating you $2,500 a month right now. Okay. And it sounds like you're just sending like templated copy, to be honest, for the most part. Hey, I nerd out over LinkedIn, think that, we could probably do something. So I think probably a really low hanging fruit is you just spent, one of your most important things is optimizing this.
Mhm.
So focusing like 90% of your available time right now on that. I see no reason why this can't be a channel that 10x's. Okay. I know you're currently talking about platform limits, but we'll talk about that as well. This outbound LinkedIn strategy with Trigify, it's unique. I think given platform constraints, you probably have a big enough total addressable market that you could scale this up like many times over. And this is where I'd be spending all of my time if we're just or most of my time if being logical. So the first thing I would do is I would test copy to see if you can increase, just simple things like your reply rate. I know there's no standardized way to do all this testing. It's not like built into LinkedIn, but this is where you would actually sit down, I don't know, compile results over a week or whatnot, and then do it. And then you'll probably get like different levels of qualification, and that'll lead to like different like conversion rates as well. So that's the first thing that I would do. The second thing is I would experiment with other accounts. Like if you're currently sending 90% of a 200 week or sorry, was it 200 a week or two? No, 200 a week platform limit. So 180 a week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, can you get other people in your organization, duplicate or triple, triple the accounts that you're doing? And then instead of sending, 200 a week right now, which is giving you 2.5K a month, literally just get three accounts, which might cost you if you buy them on some sort of, dark service or whatever, or a little bit of money. Or if you want to like hire like virtual assistants to like have accounts and then do outreach through their account, you might realistically be able to like send 600 a week and immediately triple the amount of money you're making with this approach, right? Um, you also talk about sending a
But
Loom video. I would also experiment with this. I mean, I'm sure you probably have reasons why you're sending Loom videos and it's worked for you so far. But I'd experiment with like the cadence of the videos. I'd experiment with the things that you talk about first in the videos. I'd experiment with like different formats. So maybe instead of videos, maybe send a Google Doc or something. You find that Google Docs perform 90% as well as Loom videos, but they require zero time. So what you do then is you scale the hell out of this campaign. You 10x it and you're sending 6,000 a week. I mean, probably not, but you get my point, right?
yeah.
Now you're not along here, and I think the reason why is because you probably considered some of this stuff before. You seem like a pretty learned guy. You're very good at cold outreach, obviously, going to your experience. What is the reason why you haven't done any of this stuff?
Well, the Trigify,
Yep.
the LinkedIn outreach is pretty new. So I've only been doing it for about 6 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
um, so well, closer to 2 months. And I have experimented with just plain text with the voice notes,
Hmm.
as well as with the Loom video. And the Loom video has sort of outperformed the others by far.
For sure.
Um, I haven't experimented with a Google Doc though, which is really interesting because one of the reasons I haven't scaled it and actually spoke to my brother who doesn't use his LinkedIn, um, um,
Perfect.
as a way to sort of scale this.
Hmm.
Um, and he doesn't have an issue. My dad's the same. They don't care. Um, although it is better, I think, to use a female. But for
Yep.
some reason they just perform much better.
For some reason.
Um,
For
yeah,
some reason,
yeah.
he says.
For some reason, yeah. Just not going to that right now. But my issue is just that Loom. Is that Loom? Once I send the Loom, it's like it's guaranteed. It's almost a guaranteed meeting.
Okay.
So after the first response, send a Loom because our prospects are very intelligent. They know that a lot of this stuff we send them can be automated and it can sound really genuine and personable. But once you send that video, they know, okay, this is a real human.
Hmm.
Um, and that really helps get it over the line. And I don't know how to overcome that constraint. Yeah,
Well, is that your key time constraint right now? Just are you recording Loom videos for 4 hours a day?
I am not.
Well,
I am not. But if my brother and my father and other accounts are also there, um, how would I send Loom videos on behalf of them? Because they wouldn't have a clue, right?
oh, like your brother and your father,
Like
they wouldn't have
so
a clue who you are?
no, so yeah. So what I'm saying is, if the Loom strategy is the strategy that's working to
Yes.
get the meeting, um, my brother and whoever else is using the team accounts, they wouldn't be able to send those Loom videos because it's sort
Yes.
of a one-on-one, and that's sort of the thing that's holding me back from using additional accounts to scale this.
Okay. I understand your concern, but also I think it's sort of a silly concern because you probably haven't fully utilized like your available time to send and to send these custom videos yourself. You could feasibly do this entirely yourself. And so it seems like you're trying to solve a problem before you've gotten anywhere close to having to solve that problem. If you could just scale up this by 10x or 3x or whatever, and you could make $7,500 a month instead of $2,500 a month, you could deal with that problem then. We don't got to deal with the problem now. When it's like, oh, well, how do I scale my time? because they don't want to send the Loom videos. Well, you send the Loom videos, and now your initial thing. So, like, the next thing is, well, how do I scale my own time, right? Well, are we trying to build $1 million a month business here? Or are we trying to build maybe like a 20 or 30 or $40,000 a month business? Realistically, you probably have enough time to do the 20, 30, or $40,000 a month business.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. Do you got any thoughts on that?
Mhm. That does make sense. That does make sense. I might be missing something here. Um, right. So, um, I'll send maybe 2 or 3 looms a day because that's
Hmm.
how many positive responses I get. And it works because it's me, right?
Right.
Um, and because I'm at 180, I'm sort of at the limit there. Um, if someone else has to send a loom, right, they wouldn't
Hmm.
understand the system as well as I do.
I guess the
And
idea is, sorry to cut you off there, but I think I know where
no,
you're
that's
going.
okay.
Instead
Yeah.
of them sending the loom, you would send the loom. It would be a different person. So, of course,
Oh,
I'm
I
sure there'd
see.
be a little bit of
Okay.
discord there. But do you know that
Right.
that's really a problem? Like when I send cold emails at
Mhm.
scale and I use a pre-warm mailbox or something, it'll say Gabriella at whatevercompany.com, and then I show up on the call, right? So there's usually a little bit of
Mm,
friction, and 10% of people will be like, "Oh, that's not Gabriella." So the people that said yes simply because they wanted to talk to a woman named Gabriella, they definitely don't.
right.
They definitely don't like it. But I guess the point I'm making is, I would try this first before using this as justification to not. Like to me, this is
Right.
like, man, simple as hell. You know, you could probably get this done in like a few days or something like that. Now, Harry's point about could you not just record one vague loom? You can, but Bruce is right that the tolerance for this sort of stuff has gone way down, I would say, over time, and the people's bar for being able to sniff out templated videos has also gone way up. So I always find better results when I do like personalized loom like Bruce does. But Bruce, I don't want to
Yeah.
cut you off anymore. Do you have any additional thoughts on that before we move on?
No, no, that's perfect.
Okay.
I didn't know that you meant that I have to send it for them as well.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that, so let's see what's the worst that could happen. They
Cool.
they can ask who's that, and you're gonna be like, oh, that's my brother. We work together, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Or maybe you can acknowledge it, in the first 10 seconds or something like that. Hey, blank,
Right,
I work with whatever. You guys are probably gonna have the same last name even, which makes this even better, as opposed to like you buying some random virtual assistant account or something. But okay, this is what
right.
I would do. That's
Mhm.
um that's thing number one. The second is I know you talked about resistance with other niches and stuff, or like
Mhm.
cybersecurity is performing disproportionately. But I do think it sounds like you got something pretty good over here. This Trigify thing. I wonder if you could just
Mhm.
experiment with other niches, and maybe all of the niches you've thrown so far at the wall haven't stuck. But I wonder if you just made this a normal part of your routine. Let's say you do get these 3 accounts.
Mhm.
You have 200 on one, 200 on another, 200 on another. You send 400 a week on your main offer, and then you just leave that last 200 one to just experiment with a new offer. I don't know, every 2 weeks or something like that. To give you enough data to like be
Right.
able to make an okay decision. And you, over the course of a year, go down 26 niches. Like, if you go through 26 niches, do you really think that you won't find one that might be a little bit better? I think the probability of that's pretty high personally, and I think you might find even more opportunities that you might not be considering. What do you think about that?
That's a really, really interesting suggestion. Um, one of the things that I found with LinkedIn, the LinkedIn strategy is that some of the clients that I've closed are not necessarily like cybersecurity companies. They're the salespeople at the cybersecurity companies who are paying for it out of pocket.
Right. Right.
So I think you might be onto something there. That this is probably something that could scale across niches, especially B2B niches.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. I think we can definitely do that. Obviously, Loom videos may end up being your bottleneck, but you may like actually take a significant portion of your day doing this if the first ends up happening. And then I just think that the admin stuff is obviously the other bottleneck, just from my perspective. So I don't know exactly how you'd solve that. I wish I had like a task that I could give you or something like that, where it's just every day you kind of get closer to it, but probably not going to be able to solve it in that way. How do these look as like most important priorities until the next time we chat?
It makes absolute sense to do it like that.
Cool. These seem pretty simple.
Mhm.
They don't seem super glamorous. A lot of the time, making money is just you find the thing that works and you just like press it faster and more. I think that you got a prime example of something that works for you here.
Agree.
Awesome, man. We only got a couple
Brilliant.
minutes left. I just wanted to see if maybe you would mind responding to a couple of the messages in the meeting chat. I wanted to
Not at
do this
all.
a little bit faster, but just given it's the first time we've done the agency hot seat, I'm giving myself some grace here. I see a few questions that I can just bang out. The first was, can
Mhm.
you speak a bit stronger, which you already did.
I hope that's better.
um, Ariel says, sounds exactly like Alex Hormozzi's gym launch. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I've played it on repeat for like a year. So thank you.
Harry says, why don't you automate the LinkedIn outbound is my question. Are you automating the LinkedIn outbound?
Yeah. So I'm using Captain Data to do the scraping, and HeyReach to do the actual outbound. And
Nice.
then once they accept the connection request, I've got a webhook that sends it to Break Cold, which is a little CRM that I use. And then I start to sort of I surround them with likes and comments. And so Breakhold sort of has this little CRM where it imports their LinkedIn and you can see all of the most recent activity, and you just make yourself visible, and that makes the messaging a little bit easier.
Gotcha. That's brilliant.
Mhm.
Ariel asks, where do you host this podcast? Is it like your company's podcast or what?
Right. So that's a good question, right? So I only know of Spotify. And so the strategy was actually for my clients, right? So I set this up for them
Mhm.
so that they can find clients. Um,
So are they
and
hosting it on
so
like Spotify or something?
so they host on Spotify. That's the only one I know. I use Riverside to do the recordings. And they are really excited when you kick out like an additional 30 shorts, which Riverside does for you, in like a flash. Um, really, really, really high quality. And yeah, so you're killing two birds there, because you're doing the outbound, but you're also getting 30 days worth of content, organic content for them, for no extra effort, or at least for 1 hour's effort.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me see if there's anything else. Okay, let's wrap up with one final question from Ariel. They say, do you charge for the podcast? I take it.
Yeah.
Probably not. Oh, you do
Oh,
charge for the
yeah.
podcast. You charge
Yeah.
your
So,
people that you're reaching out to. They pay you money to.
right.
Oh, that's neat.
So, so when I do the pitch is that our outreach strategy is, um, the podcast strategy. And so I literally charge 3,500 for that cold outreach strategy. So it includes setting up the cold email, setting up LinkedIn, and then I in that package, I'll host between 4 and 8 podcasts. Um, and when I say host, I'm more like a producer, just coaching them behind the scenes, and then um, presenting a completed podcast to them. And yeah, so that becomes part of the package.
Very cool. So I thought you were
Yeah.
charging the prospects that you guys were reaching out to for a
No,
second. So I misunderstood.
no,
That's a great strat.
no. It would be nice though, right?
Tell me about it. That'll be $5,000, dude. I'm really stoked. I'm really stoked on this. I'm really stoked on this format. I'm really stoked on the ability to have really cool people like you
Yeah.
on here. I'm really stoked on all the value that you provided. Is there anything else that you wanted to say just before we wrap it up? I just want to be mindful of your time.
No, I'm really grateful for the insights and the advice, because once you're in the mountain, or under the mountain of administration and things that you got to do, you don't really see everything the way you should, and you brought a lot of perspective, and I really, really appreciate that.
All right, great.
and and all
Guys,
the questions as well, right?
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much for making it to the very first agency hot seat. I should be recording this, but I left your note taker in here just in case.
Great.
Um,
Thank you.
but I think that this is going to be a really viable format. I think we're all going to learn quite a bit about how to implement things in businesses. I think that the speaker is going to get a lot of value out of it. I'm getting a lot of value out of it, and hopefully everybody else is as well. So thank you very much, Bruce, again. I'm going to send you over a DM at some point in the next day, just following up on that admin stuff. I really hope that everything with the hospitalization and whatnot goes well. And you're crushing it, bro. Keep up the great work.
Thanks so much, Nick. Appreciate it so much.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Rock on.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.